On this channel, we bring you true-to-life stories of quiet strength, breathtaking courage, and unheard voices rising against all odds. These are the stories that linger in your heart long after the screen fades to black. Today's story is about one forgotten girl, a broken piano, and the moment she silenced an entire institution, not with rage, but with music. The echo of the principal's laugh rang louder than the silence that followed. "You want to play the piano?" Principal Hargrove's voice cracked like a whip through the auditorium. It wasn't just disbelief, it was mockery, sharp and public. Lily Monroe stood frozen beneath the stage lights, holding her wrinkled audition form like a shield that suddenly felt far too small. It was the winter showcase auditions, and the room had fallen still. Rows of students clutched their papers, afraid to move. The tension thickened around Lily, a foster girl known more for her silence than her ambition. But that day, she had dared to ask for something personal. She wanted to play the piano. Hargrove let the silence hang a moment too long, then spoke again, his voice dripping with disdain. "This isn't a charity talent show, Miss Monroe. This is for real talent. For students who've trained." His gaze dropped, dragging over her hand-me-down canvas shoes as if they alone disqualified her. "Perhaps you should come back when you've had more structure in your life." Laughter, soft and poisonous, flickered through the back of the room. Lily didn't move. Her throat tightened, her heart pounding. That morning, she had stood in front of a cracked bathroom mirror, whispering to herself, "Just be brave today." But now bravery felt like a cruel joke. She had no pedigree, no formal training, just an old piano in the corner of her latest foster home, and countless hours stolen in the dark, teaching herself notes by ear. Still, she didn't move. The silence had always been her armor. She had learned long ago that silence could shield you. But now, silence was a cage. She murmured, "I've practiced. I'm good." Her voice trembled. Hargrove chuckled, dismissive. "Everyone thinks they're good. That's what makes mediocrity so popular." He clapped his hands once. Next. Each step down from the stage felt like a betrayal. She didn't cry. Not then. Not until the hallway swallowed her whole and the heavy side door clicked shut behind her. Then, pressed against the cold wall, she let a single tear fall, not from pain, but from fury. Not at the principal, not even at the laughter. At herself, for thinking she could be seen. "Miss Monroe?" a soft voice broke through. She looked up to find Miss Dorset, the choir teacher, holding a clipboard. Her face was unreadable. "I'm sorry," Lily whispered, wiping her eyes. "I didn't mean to cause a scene." "You were brave," Miss Dorset said, gently but firmly. "Braver than most." Lily blinked. Brave? No one had ever called her that before. She'd been called many things, quiet, strange, rebellious, but never brave. The woman stepped closer. "Do you have any experience?" she asked. "I've never taken lessons," Lily admitted. "But I play. There's an old piano at home. I just play." Miss Dorset considered that for a long moment. Then, "Come by the music room tomorrow morning. Early. Before school starts." Lily hesitated. "Why?" The woman smiled faintly. "Because I want to hear what your heart sounds like." That night, Lily lay in her narrow bed staring up at the cracked ceiling. Downstairs, the muffled TV blared over the sound of her foster dad's angry phone call. Her room smelled like mildew and old dust, but her mind was somewhere else, at the piano. The cracked keys. The broken left pedal. The sticky D sharp. It wasn't perfect, but it was hers. She had taught herself Chopin by trial and error. Played lullabies from memory, piecing together forgotten fragments from her childhood. The piano was her voice when words failed. It was the only thing that listened without judging. At 5:47 the next morning, Lily was standing outside the school doors in the drizzle. She considered leaving. Turning around. Fading back into the silence where it was safe. But when the janitor unlocked the side door, he gave her a knowing nod. "Practice early, huh?" he said. She nodded shyly. "Music's best when the world's still quiet," he added. The music room was dim, empty. Chairs waited like silent witnesses. At the front sat an old upright piano, worn, slightly out of tune, but intact. The lid was already open. Miss Dorset arrived minutes later, brushing raindrops from her coat. "Whenever you're ready," she said. Lily's hands were ice cold. Her heart pounded like a timpani. But she sat. And then, she played. Soft notes first, hesitant. Like secrets whispered between breaths. Then the melody deepened, steadied, unfolded like a flower opening at dawn. She wasn't reading music. She was reading herself, memory, pain, joy. Truth. Miss Dorset didn't move. She didn't speak. When the last note fell into the room like a feather, she turned to the window, blinking hard. "I don't know where that came from," Lily whispered. "It came from you," Miss Dorset said. "And if Principal Hargrove can't see that, then we'll find someone who will." For the first time in her life, Lily felt what it meant to be seen. That single moment didn't erase the sting of yesterday. It didn't make the laughter go away. But it was something else, a crack of sunlight in a long, gray sky. Something she could work with. Something she could fight for. And Lily Monroe? She wasn't done yet. Lily arrived even earlier the next morning, the sky still inked with pre-dawn shadows. She crept through the side entrance, her breath fogging in the cold air, her fingers tucked inside her sleeves for warmth. Her footsteps echoed through the quiet hallways, a rhythm she was starting to recognize as her own. In the music room, Miss Dorset was already waiting. She sat on the piano bench, flipping through a folder of old sheet music. When Lily entered, she didn't speak. She simply patted the bench beside her. Today, Lily played something different. A variation on a jazz tune she had heard once in a movie and memorized by ear. It was raw, improvised, stitched together with instinct more than skill. But it was hers. When she finished, Miss Dorset didn't clap. She only looked at Lily with a mixture of awe and sadness. "It's like you're speaking a language you were never taught," she murmured. "Where did you learn to do that?" Lily shrugged. "I just listen. And then I try to make it real." Miss Dorset placed a hand over Lily's. "If I had a sliver of your instinct, I would have never stopped performing. But today wasn't about performance. Today was about survival." Hargrove had made it crystal clear, no audition, no showcase. No negotiation. Lily already knew how the system worked. Bureaucracy was just a fancier word for no. One unsigned form, one disapproving glance, and an entire dream could be quietly buried. Still, she kept coming to the music room. Morning after morning, she sat at the piano like a prayer. And someone else was starting to notice. "Picana pianista," a voice said one morning as she turned the hallway corner too quickly and nearly collided with a rolling trash bin. It was Mr. Alvarez, the janitor. His grin was lopsided, his thick accent curling the words like a melody. "You remember me?" Lily asked, surprised. He chuckled. "Hard to forget someone who looks at a piano like it's sacred ground." She blushed. "You played yesterday morning, didn't you?" "I heard it," he said, leaning on his mop. "Thought it was the wind at first. But it had too much soul." Lily hesitated. "I was just practicing." "You play from the heart," he said, not as a compliment, but as a fact. Most students, they only play from the fingers. There was something about the way he said it, like he'd once known more than cleaning floors. "You play too?" she asked cautiously. He smiled, And for the first time, Lily noticed a trace of something old in his eyes. I used to teach music theory, composition. Back home, before I came here. Why'd you stop? She asked. Because politics got louder than music. He tapped the mop once against the floor. And because it's hard to play a piano when the room's been locked. They stood in silence for a beat, and then he leaned in, lowering his voice. Don't stop practicing, Nina. The music inside you. It's trying to breathe. Lily didn't know what to say. People didn't talk to her like this, not adults, not peers. Like she mattered. Like her talent wasn't a fluke but something sacred. But I can't get into the showcase, she said. Principal Hargrove said no. And someone broke the piano I was using. Mr. Alvarez's eyes darkened. He said no because he's afraid. Afraid? Of being wrong. Of losing control. People like him, they build little fences around power and call it tradition. Lily looked down. That's exactly how it felt. Like there were gates she'd never been meant to pass through. Then Mr. Alvarez's voice softened. Come with me. She followed him down a series of dim corridors, past the backstage area of the auditorium, through a narrow passage that smelled of varnish and time. At the end was a locked door. From a lanyard around his neck, he pulled a long silver key and opened it. Dust danced in the air as sunlight filtered through a high window. And there, like a forgotten relic from another century, stood a baby grand piano. Its wood was dulled by age, its ivory keys slightly yellowed. But it was majestic. Beautiful. Alive. I found it when I started working here, he said. No one plays it. They say it's broken. It's not. Lily stepped forward, heart thumping. She ran her fingers over the lid, tracing the curved edges like they were braille. She sat gently, pressed a key. The note rang out, warm, if slightly out of tune. She tried a chord. Then a soft progression. It was a little stubborn, one of the black keys stuck, but it was real. And the music that came out wasn't just sound. It was air finally leaving her lungs. Mr. Alvarez stood behind her, unmoving. When she stopped playing, he stepped forward and lifted the lid. The hammers need adjusting. A 3 sticks sometimes. But it can be fixed. Would you help me? She asked. He met her gaze, and there was no hesitation in his voice. I thought you'd never ask. That afternoon, as the halls emptied and the sky bruised with twilight, they returned to the room with tools Mr. Alvarez had brought from home. A soft brush. A screwdriver. Fine grit sandpaper. Together, they worked. He showed her how to clean beneath the keys, realign the action, tune with precision. She listened like a student. He spoke like a man remembering who he used to be. You know, he said while tightening a screw, when I was young, I believed music could change people. She didn't laugh. She didn't scoff. Maybe it still can, she whispered. And in that quiet room, with dust in the air and a piano breathing again after years of silence, Lily Monroe began to believe that maybe she wasn't just playing to be heard. Maybe she was playing to be remembered. Lily returned to the hidden piano room every morning, arriving before the building stirred to life. Mr. Alvarez was always there waiting, his mop traded in for a tuning wrench and a warm smile. What had begun as a secret became a sanctuary, an old piano, 2 kindred spirits, and music too honest to be ignored. Each day, the instrument sounded stronger. Her fingers danced with growing confidence. She wasn't just practicing now, she was preparing. Preparing for something bigger than a performance. Preparing to defy the system that had told her she didn't belong. One morning, after playing a particularly soulful rendition of Clair de Lune, Mr. Alvarez clapped slowly, his eyes bright. That piece has lived 100 lives, he said. But I think you just gave it one more. I think I want to play it at the showcase, Lily whispered. If if I still can. His smile faded into something more serious. You can, he said. But not for Hargrove. Not for the applause. You play for you, Lily. Because it's the only voice they haven't stolen. That night, Lily pulled out an old shoebox from beneath her bed. Inside was a single photo, her mother, smiling in a sundress, holding a much younger Lily on her lap. It was the only picture she had left, its corners worn and soft from being handled too much. She held it to her chest, shut her eyes. I think you'd like the way I play now, she whispered. As she drifted to sleep, she could almost hear her mother's lullaby again, soft and fading, like the memory of a dream. The next morning, Lily entered the practice room with her usual hope, but stopped cold. The baby grand was destroyed. Its strings had been cut, the lid cracked, and a cruel message was scrawled across the keys in thick red marker. Not your stage. She didn't scream. She didn't cry. She simply sat on the bench, hovering over the broken instrument like a mourner at a grave. Mr. Alvarez arrived minutes later. The moment he stepped in, he froze. Dios mío, he muttered. He dropped to his knees beside the piano, fingers brushing over the broken strings like they were wounds. This isn't vandalism, he said finally. This is a message. Lily stared ahead. They wanted me to stop. Mr. Alvarez was silent for a long moment. Then he stood and placed a hand on her shoulder. They wanted to silence you, he said. So let them scream into the void. You play louder. Her voice was barely audible. But where? I don't have anywhere to play. He tilted his head. That's not entirely true. He led her through the school, weaving through hallways and staff areas Lily had never seen. At the end of one long corridor was a small, nondescript door labeled Faculty Resource Room, authorized personnel only. Mr. Alvarez produced a different key from his pocket and unlocked it. The room inside was plain, stacked chairs, a battered coffee machine, a faded poster about fire safety. But in the corner, behind a thick curtain, sat an upright piano. Old. Dull. Whole. I've kept this here for years, he said. Forgotten by everyone else. But I didn't forget. Lily approached it slowly. She pressed a key. The note came out a little sharp, but pure. It was enough. She sat and played, soft, unsure, then steady. A melody emerged. Her own. A lullaby no one had written but her soul had always known. Mr. Alvarez stood in the corner, hands clasped. I have an idea, he said quietly. That afternoon, while most students were distracted by tryouts and lunchroom gossip, Mr. Alvarez made a few quiet calls. His voice, so often meek and polite, became something else, commanding, persuasive. A man once silenced finding the courage to speak. The next morning, Lily entered the faculty room expecting another secret rehearsal. Instead, 3 strangers sat in folding chairs near the back. 2 women, 1 man, all dressed like artists who had somewhere important to be, yet chose to be here. Who are they? Lily asked, her voice small. Mr. Alvarez smiled. Friends. Professors. Community college. Conservatory. I told them about you. She blinked. I'm not ready. You'll never be ready, he replied. That's why it matters. Her fingers shook as she sat at the piano. The professors didn't smile. They didn't nod. They simply watched. Lily began. She played the Chopin etude she had practiced in secret while her foster siblings played video games in the room below. She shifted into a piece of her own, a raw, aching composition filled with longing, fear, and quiet defiance. It was less a performance than a confession. When she finished, the silence was unlike anything she'd known. The man with the gray beard was the first to speak. You taught yourself? Lily nodded. I just, play what I hear. One of the women blinked away tears. You're not a student, she said. You're an artist. The other professor leaned forward. We'd like to offer you a mentorship slot. One-on-one study. I'll talk to the board. You have something that can't be taught. Mr. Alvarez beamed like a proud father. Lily sat frozen. But I didn't even audition. Oh sweetheart, the professor said softly. You just did. That night, Lily didn't sleep, not from fear, but from possibility. For the first time in her life, the idea of a future wasn't blurry or borrowed. It was hers. And nothing, not cruelty, not broken pianos, not even a principal's disdain, could take that away now. The morning of the school showcase arrived cloaked in fog and tension. Students buzzed with excitement and nerves, hauling instrument cases, ironing costumes, and running last-minute rehearsals in hallways. The auditorium was being set up with gold drapes, light rigs, and rows of folding chairs. The vibe was electric, unless you were Lily Monroe. She wasn't on the program. Despite all she'd overcome, all the music she'd breathed into forgotten pianos and broken rooms, Principal Hargrove had made sure her name wasn't listed. Not as a performer. Not even as a student assistant. And yet, she arrived early, not with fanfare, but with resolve. Are you sure about this? Miss Dorset whispered to her as they waited outside the auditorium doors. Lily adjusted the satchel strapped over her shoulder, which held carefully guarded sheet music and a humble change of clothes, an old but clean black dress and her mother's necklace. I'm not asking for a spotlight, Lily said softly. I just want to play. One song. That's all. Miss Dorset gave her a tight nod. Then we'll make sure you do. As the first act, a brass trio, began tuning on stage, Miss Dorset walked backstage and found Mr. Alvarez, who was helping position a few props for the theater group. The two exchanged a silent glance and nodded. Meanwhile, Principal Hargrove stood near the podium, flipping through the showcase program with military precision. His eyes narrowed when he noticed Miss Dorset approaching with purpose. We've already reviewed the set list, Martha, he said stiffly. No last-minute changes. This isn't a change. This is a correction. I'm not interested in hearing it. She deserves 5 minutes, Miss Dorset snapped, her voice low but sharp. After what you allowed, what you encouraged, she deserves 5. Hargrove's jaw tightened. We're not turning this school into a charity stage for your little pet project. Then tell the board why you excluded a musically gifted student after she was physically harassed. Tell them how you let that piano get destroyed. Tell them how you've hidden behind protocol while she's been out playing half the conservatory-bound students in this school. He looked like he'd swallowed glass. She doesn't have the discipline. She doesn't have the pedigree. She has talent, Miss Dorset shot back. More than most of the kids you handpick because their parents donate to the booster club. He turned to walk away. 5 minutes, she said again. Or I go public. You may not respect Lily Monroe, but there's a growing list of professionals outside this school who do. Hargrove paused. Then, through gritted teeth, fine. But she goes last. After cleanup. Miss Dorset didn't smile. She didn't thank him. She simply turned on her heel and walked backstage to tell Lily. She gave you 5 minutes. That's all I need. By the time the final listed act took a bow, the audience had begun gathering their things, mothers reaching for handbags, bored siblings heading for the aisle, a few teachers quietly praising their favorites. Principal Hargrove stepped up to the mic to give closing remarks when the house lights dimmed unexpectedly. Then, a spotlight. And then, a single note. Lily Monroe stepped onto the stage, not in heels, not in sequins, not with an expensive violin or glittering trophy. Just her. She sat at the old upright piano that had been wheeled in quietly during the intermission. The audience stilled. Even the students stopped whispering when they saw her fingers hover above the keys. No one clapped. No one cheered. And that was fine. Because when Lily began to play, something happened that no applause could capture. The room stopped breathing. Her hands moved like she wasn't touching keys but speaking through them. Her melody was haunting, aching, like a memory someone had buried and forgotten, until now. She didn't perform for approval. She told a story. Of being left behind. Of fighting to be seen. Of the cold, empty hallways and silent dinners and the forgotten music room where someone finally said, "You matter." She played through every note of pain, and then rose into something hopeful, bold, almost defiant. She ended on a soft high note, one hand lingering above the keys before lowering it to her lap. Silence. For 3 long seconds, the auditorium remained frozen in time. Then, thunder. Applause erupted, not polite, not obligatory, but real. Raw. Teachers stood. Parents stood. Even a few students who had never spoken to Lily before were on their feet, stunned and moved. Backstage, Miss Dorset and Mr. Alvarez clapped with tears in their eyes. And Principal Hargrove? He stood off to the side, frozen, his face ashen. The head of the school board had slipped into the back row 10 minutes before Lily began, no one had noticed. But now he rose, clapping slowly, his eyes fixed not on Hargrove, but on Lily. Later that night, as the auditorium emptied, Lily found her way outside. She sat alone on the concrete steps, exhausted but glowing. Miss Dorset approached quietly and sat beside her. "You didn't just play tonight," she said. "You took their silence and turned it into thunder." "I just needed to be heard," Lily whispered. "And now?" Miss Dorset asked. Lily looked up at the stars. "Now I want to teach other girls like me how to be loud without raising their voice." A pause. "Do you think he'll get in trouble?" Lily asked, meaning Hargrove. Miss Dorset gave a slow, measured nod. "He's already being investigated." "Because of tonight?" "Because he messed with the wrong melody," she said. They laughed. Quietly. Like a song's soft coda. From behind, Mr. Alvarez emerged, carrying 2 cups of hot cocoa in takeaway lids. "For the star of the night," he said with a wink. Lily accepted it with a shy grin. "Thank you. For everything." He raised his cup. "To broken pianos and louder hearts." The next morning, whispers filled the hallways like static in the air. Everyone was talking about her. Not in the hushed, pitiful way they used to, but with awe. Lily Monroe, the foster girl who had no business being on that stage, had become the one person everyone remembered. The girl who played a broken piano like it was a grand symphony. When Lily stepped onto campus, students turned. Some nodded in admiration. Others just stared. Teachers she'd never spoken to smiled. Even the front office secretary, usually too preoccupied to notice her, paused to say, "You have a gift, sweetheart." Lily wasn't used to being seen. And yet, that morning, she walked taller. But as the admiration grew, so did the tension. Principal Hargrove called her into his office 3rd period. She expected a reprimand. Maybe even a suspension disguised as a disciplinary review. Instead, she found him sitting stiffly at his desk, his tie slightly loosened, his expression unreadable. He gestured to the chair across from him. She sat, refusing to shrink. "You made quite an impression last night," he began, tone clipped. "The school board chairman called me personally." Lily said nothing. "He seems intrigued by your potential. And concerned about recent allegations." Now she tilted her head. "Allegations?" "Accusations regarding the destruction of school property, your exclusion from the showcase lineup, and," he hesitated, his jaw flexing. "Bias." "You mean sabotage," she said, calm but firm. "And neglect." He didn't respond. Just stared at her like a problem he couldn't solve. I'm willing, he said finally, to offer you a position on the school's music advisory committee. It's mostly ceremonial, but it'll look good on college applications. Lily blinked slowly. You think I care about being on a committee? You should, he snapped. This is me extending an olive branch. No, she said. It's you trying to cover your tracks before the board finds out who really cut those strings. His face flushed. She leaned forward. I don't want a title, Mr. Hargrove. I want change. You're a student, he hissed. You don't make demands. No, Lily said, standing. I play them. And with that, she walked out, leaving the principal of Westbrook High staring at the door she didn't bother to close behind her. Later that week, Lily was called into a very different meeting. This time, it wasn't in a cramped office filled with old diplomas and resentment, it was in the district's performing arts center. Clean, modern, glass-walled. She sat at the far end of a long mahogany table across from the chairman of the school board, a few arts program directors, and two professors who had witnessed her performance. Lily, the chairman began warmly, what you did last week wasn't just talent. It was transformation. She looked around, nervous. I didn't mean to cause trouble. No trouble, he said. Just a wake-up call. The professor with the silver beard nodded. We'd like to invite you to our winter mentorship residency. 3 months, all expenses paid. You'll study under professional musicians and even record your own original pieces. Lily's jaw dropped. But I haven't even applied to college yet. You've already passed the audition life gave you, said the other professor. Consider this your first step. A pause. There's more, the chairman added. The school board is reviewing the leadership at Westbrook. That includes Mr. Hargrove. What happened to you shouldn't have happened to any student. Lily hesitated. Will they fire him? We're not there yet, he replied. But his days of unchecked control are over. She left the building with shaking hands and a heart full of thunder. The girl who once sat silently in the back row of her classes was now leading change across the district. But the most unexpected part came a few days later. As she was leaving school, a boy she didn't know caught up with her near the bike racks. He looked about her age, scruffy hair, quiet eyes. You're Lily, right? She nodded cautiously. My sister, she's in the foster system too, he said. Last night, she saw a video of you playing. She said it was the first time she thought someone like her could be more than what the world gives. Lily felt her breath catch. She wanted me to tell you, thank you. She smiled softly. Tell her I said she already is more. That night, back at her foster home, Lily sat at the tiny desk wedged between her bed and the wall. She pulled out a new notebook, blank pages, fresh ink. On the first page, she wrote. Music isn't the opposite of silence. It's what makes silence matter. Then, she began to compose. Not because she had to. But because the world was finally listening, and she had something to say. The first snowfall of winter dusted the campus like powdered sugar the morning Lily left for her residency. She carried a single duffel bag and a worn sheet music folder, her entire world tucked into canvas and hope. Mr. Alvarez drove her to the conservatory's satellite facility 2 hours north, refusing to let her take the bus. He insisted on the scenic route, winding through frost-glazed fields and sleepy hills. The radio played soft jazz, and neither of them spoke much. When they arrived, Lily stared in awe. The building was part castle, part cathedral, its arched windows glowed amber in the morning light, and through the front doors, she could already hear someone rehearsing in a faraway practice room. Chopin, maybe. Or Liszt. But brighter. Alive. She turned to Mr. Alvarez. You know, she said, if you hadn't kept that piano, if you hadn't said anything that day. He shook his head. No, Mija. You were always the music. I just made sure you had somewhere to echo. They embraced. And then, Lily stepped through the doors. The residency changed her. For the first time, she wasn't the poor girl in the corner. She was a peer. She was asked for her thoughts, for her technique. She was shown tools, software, theory that once seemed as distant as Mars. She was mentored by a former concert pianist from South Africa, a blind jazz legend who taught her that soul had no tempo, and a French composer who wept the first time he heard her original piece, Midnight Lullaby. By the second month, Lily had recorded 5 tracks. One of them, Keys from the Basement, was inspired by the broken piano at Westbrook. It was quiet, with sudden thunder. Pain stitched into melody. Her professors called it heartbreaking and cinematic. A visiting producer asked if he could feature it in a student documentary. Lily said yes. She still kept to herself at night. After hours, she'd sneak into the old chapel behind the dorms and play in the dark. No one told her what to play. That's when her soul sang loudest. Meanwhile, back at Westbrook High, silence had turned on Principal Hargrove. Following an anonymous tip, several teachers confirmed that he had tampered with student submissions, falsified audition results, and directly blocked scholarship recommendations for non-donor students. The investigation was swift and brutal. By February, the board had announced his resignation. Miss Dorset took over as interim principal. The school changed overnight. Music rooms were repaired. Pianos tuned. And in the main hallway, they hung a framed photo of Lily Monroe at the winter showcase, mid-performance, with a brass plate that read. When no one gave her a stage, she built her own. One cold March morning, Lily returned home. Her foster house looked smaller now. She unpacked slowly, folding each memory like cloth. That night, she wandered through town and found herself standing outside Westbrook's auditorium. It was open. She stepped inside. The upright piano, her upright piano, had been moved to center stage. Restored. Shining. She sat. Pressed a key. It was in perfect tune. And then, she played. No audience. No applause. Just the girl who once lived in shadows, playing for the ghosts of who she used to be. Mr. Alvarez stepped in near the end. He didn't say anything. He just listened. When she finished, he smiled. Ready to go home? I think I'm finally there, Lily whispered. But her story wasn't done yet. 1 week later, Lily received a call from the conservatory headmaster. You've been nominated for the National Youth Composers Award, he said. They want you to perform in New York. Live. Lily nearly dropped the phone. You mean, like, at the competition? No, he chuckled. At the awards. As the feature. But. I haven't even graduated yet. And still, they want you. Your piece moved the judging panel to tears. She said yes. Not for fame. Not for revenge. But for the girl who once played in silence. Before she left for New York, she returned to her old school one last time. She walked into the band room, where students were practicing a spring recital. They paused when they saw her. You're Lily, right? One girl asked shyly. Lily smiled. I used to be. Then she sat beside them and said, Mind if I show you something? She didn't pull out sheet music. She pulled out a story. Her fingers told it again. But this time, they weren't trembling. And this time, she wasn't alone. Because note by note, student by student, others joined in. Flutes. Violins. A cello. Even the timid drummer in the back added a heartbeat. Together, they played the sound of something being rewritten. The night of the awards arrived like a dream Lily couldn't quite believe she was part of. The venue, a grand concert hall in Midtown Manhattan, dressed in gold and glass, filled with composers, donors, musicians, and media. Flashbulbs popped. 100 conversations buzzed through the marble lobby, but Lily stood still in her borrowed black gown, clutching the necklace her birth mother had once left for her in a shoebox. Miss Dorset was there, she'd flown in with her own money, refusing to let Lily walk that red carpet alone. Mr. Alvarez had surprised her too, showing up with a pressed coat and a pocket square that didn't quite match, because of course he did. "You nervous?" he asked. Lily exhaled slowly. "Terrified." "Good," he smiled. "Means your soul's awake." When her name was announced, the room hushed. "Please welcome, our youngest feature composer ever. Lily Monroe." Applause echoed. Spotlights danced. She stepped onto that stage, not as a charity case, not as a foster kid, not as the girl the principal once called an attention-hungry distraction. She was the melody now. She sat at the polished Steinway grand piano in front of hundreds of elite musicians and executives. And she began to play. Home Without Walls. It wasn't just music. It was every basement she had ever lived in. Every stare she'd endured. Every silence she'd broken. Every teacher who saw her. Every cracked key she'd made sing. There were moments in the piece that felt like falling. Others that rose like sunlight. Her fingers trembled, just a little, but her heart held steady. And when she reached the final note, she let it ring. The auditorium stayed quiet for 2 full breaths. And then, thunder again. A standing ovation that shook the chandeliers. People wept. People cheered. Even the critics who rarely smiled had to stand. Backstage, a panel judge approached her, tears still streaked on her cheek. "You didn't just perform," she said, voice hoarse. "You rewrote the idea of what music is for." Lily didn't know what to say. She was just Lily. But then the director of a prestigious music label pulled her aside. "We'd like to discuss signing you to our youth composer development program. You'd work with industry mentors, record in our studios, even score short films." Her breath hitched. "Are you serious?" He smiled. "Deadly." That night, as Lily stood on the hotel balcony overlooking the city skyline, she held her phone up to call her caseworker, because she wanted her little foster siblings to know it was possible. The sky stretched wide above her. For once, it didn't feel so far away. Back in Westbrook, news of Lily's performance swept through the town. The school hung a new banner across the main hallway. "Congratulations to Lily Monroe, from the music room to Manhattan." Former students wrote letters. A non-profit arts foundation announced a scholarship in her name, the Lily Monroe Fund, to support musical education for youth in foster care. Miss Dorset would help run it. Mr. Alvarez would teach in it. And at the spring recital, a group of young musicians performed her piece, Keys from the Basement, in full ensemble for the first time. When they finished, the auditorium erupted once again. Because her music no longer belonged to just her. It belonged to everyone who had ever been silenced and still dared to sing. A year later, a reporter asked Lily in a televised interview, "When did you know you were going to make it?" She paused. Then smiled. "When I played a broken piano and people finally stopped looking at my past, and started listening to my story." She looked into the camera. "Some of us were born into noise. Others were born into silence. But all of us get to choose how loud we want to live." And then, off camera, she sat down at a small upright piano in the studio. Not perfect. But perfectly hers. And she played.